It's summer. Let's see what's happening in the gardens. This is my fig tree. We'll start with the indoor garden here. This is the fig tree. I keep it in this spot. It seems really happy. And I know figs don't really like to be moved around. This fig, it had dropped its leaves in the winter inside here, and then when the light comes back, it starts putting out new leaves and grows little figs. And they're come along nicely. It's put out quite a few. And they're just filling out. And it won't be long. They'll start to ripen and turn into sweet, delicious figs. And as you see, all the plants that I was growing in here in the winter, they've been moved out, except I've still got my what's left of my poinsettias, my aloe vera, and this calla lily. I'm going to take it out and put it out into the bed you see I have out front here. That's where I've got my different bulbs. I've got a beautiful, beautiful oriental lily stargazer. It's just opening up. And I put my Easter lily in there, and I had some extra dahlia bulbs that I'm putting in. And I'm going to stick this calla lily out there for the summer. And then we come out onto my deck, and where I have my herbs nice and close to the door: rosemary, sage, lemon thyme, different mints. There's my Thai pepper. I've got some cherry tomatoes growing, a new geranium to give some color, and a basil plant in there, and some of my geranium plants and flowering. There's a pepper jalapeno that was from last year, and it just keeps producing. But I love this view from my deck. The towering spruce tree. There's some lilacs still in bloom. Sweet, sweet scent. We live right in the forest in a pine meadow. And yeah, as you can see, we're surrounded by evergreens, and these are Saskatoon bushes. They're starting to fill out with berries. Over here, my poor pepper plants. I had been meaning to get them potted up, but they need potted and staked. They're producing peppers, but they need to be in bigger pots. Here we've got the celery plant that was from last year. I had dug out of the garden, kept it all winter, and now I see one of them is going to seed, so it'll give us some fresh seed for next year. And here's the other part of our deck. I'm growing some cannabis plants for my husband's medicine. Keeps his blood pressure down. There's some basil. I've got lemon verbena, some mint, chocolate mint. Oh, here comes our neighbor's dog for a visit. And the apple tree is putting out some apples. Hi, Winter. Hi, girlie. You're all wet. You're all wet, little girl. Hi. Hi. Oh, she's such a sweetheart. Now let's take a look at my greens garden and the covered garden. So here's my greens garden with the different plants in the allium family. I've got the garlic chives, they're just starting to go to bloom. And these big ones here, they were actually just the roots. I'd cut off some green onions, same over here, and they grew up a whole new plant and they got quite big. These ones here that are in bloom now are the perennial onion. They'll come back year after year. These little onions are sets of yellow onions interspersed with my butter crunch lettuce and red sail lettuce. I've got lots of chickweed growing in here, but I like to add that into my salads. And also the chive plants. And I did plant up some arugula, but it seemed like it kind of got washed out. I don't think I'll get much. There's a few little seedlings coming up, but we've had lots of rain. I haven't been in the garden, and obviously I need to do some weeding. But these chickweed, they're delicious when they're young like that, to throw right in with your lettuce and green onions for your salad. Here we have some more of that red sales lettuce, and I had some kale plants that I had dug out of the garden last year. They've been growing inside, but they're getting a little weak. I did reseed some more, and I'm going to thin these guys out and take the thinnings and plant them out. I've got some spots in my garden I want to fill up. And I planted some extra potatoes that were starting to sprout. And you see here there was some garlic that got left in the garden from last year. I didn't harvest them. And so they're growing a full clump of them. Some asparagus plants that is flowering now. Over here I've got the haskap bush that it didn't do so well this year. There is some more that need to get picked. It's like an elongated blueberry. And the little Johnny Jump Up, or it's officially heartsease, but we call them Johnny Jump Ups here because they kind of jump up all over the place. But they're a lovely edible flower to add some color to your salads. Another edible flower is the pansies and the nasturtiums. I really like the nasturtium flowers for their peppery kind of taste, and the leaves too. Totally edible. You can actually make these into a pesto if you'd like, instead of basil. And the colored flowers, just pick them and eat them as is, or add them for color in your salads. And this little section of the greens garden is for my cat. It's some cat mint and catnip. I learned to put it at the edge of the garden. He loves to nip on it, roll in it. Has a gay old time. And this other half of the green garden, I've got sweet Sicily growing. And it has a lovely licoricey taste in the leaves. You can use it for tea. I like to also chop it up, and when I make rhubarb stew, there's a sweetness to it and that licoricey flavor. And these green seeds, it's just like black licorice candy. So I pick those off. There's my no sugar candy, black licorice candy. There I've got lots of green seeds coming. Lots of good black licorice treats. And my plum tree, that's what's growing here. It was in full blossom this spring, but we had a frost while the blossoms were out, and it doesn't seem like many plums have set, so not a good year for plums. And inside my covered garden, I've got a few of my extra tomatoes that I just planted along here. Indigo rose, tumbling sweet tumbler, the one that's all in flower. And I like anything that's in flower. I like to give it a little shake to help pollinate it and set more fruit. I have, this was a turmeric plant my neighbor gave me. It's not looking that great, but hopefully we'll get a root out of it. And then you'll see on my tomato plants, I tie them up with strings, and that way I still have to get some more tied up. They're a little bit young there, some of them. But then you just tap on the board and it shakes the plants. And you can see here like the difference, like these big taller tomato plants, they were actually started the same as their neighboring plants beside them, but I got them potted up perfect timing before they're got root bound at all. And so they're double the size, and that's all about timing and getting them potted up. I always start them inside because last frost date in zone 2 here is June the 7th. So I start everything ahead of time, but these ones are doing very well. I got some tomatoes starting. And then in the back there, I have some self-seeded poppy, which is the poppy symphorium, or for the bread poppy, and more tomatoes. And at the back is my cucumbers. And some of them are starting to blossom. Some of them I had to replace. We had some cooler weather and the young seedlings didn't really like that, so I bought some other seedlings and filled the holes. And I also grow my celery in here. I got lots of celery, and this part that was more shady, I was looking for a space for growing potatoes. These are the purple fingerling potatoes. So they're fine there. I'm not looking for them to flower, so they can have the more shaded area. And also in here I put some kohlrabi, but a lot of my earlier plantings, I'm not exactly sure what it was, but I'm thinking it was probably root maggot. But you see here, this was a lovely lush plant, lots of leaf growth on, and they just went wilty. This is falling off. I thought it might make it, and you see it's rotting. It's not going to make it, and there's like no root growth in there. So I'm thinking I had the root maggots in there. So what I did with this newly planted, this was a bedding plant, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to get a kohlrabi out of that. But before I planted that out, I put in some granular neem, hoping to take care of those root maggots. And then we have my front garden. This is the area where I get the most light. It was an old pasture area, and my neighbor came in and offered to break the soil and help me amend it, bring in some other well-aged manure and peat. I had some biochar. I had this, see these bags of grass over there? I actually cover my garden with that in the fall at the end of the growing season. And then that keeps the weeds down and also feeds my soil for the next year. But this came about, I was going to have someone staying on the land here with us that was a family of 5, and I thought, oh, okay, I better get another garden space happening. So I've got, again, some extra potatoes that were sprouting. I had reclaimed this land. It was growing up with the quack grass, but because we had a very wet spring and I had it covered in the fall, I could just kind of roll it back, and I thought, well, this is marvelous because it's good rich soil under there. And then I planted it up with some potatoes that were sprouting, and they're growing nicely. My garlic that was planted last fall, it should soon be putting out garlic scapes. I don't see any yet. I love the garlic scapes. And then I planted my onion sets. I see I had weeded it recently, but then we've had lots of rains, and I see they're all growing back again. But these here, what is called we call them pigweed, but they're a lovely green, steam green. So I pick those and steam them up to have with my meal. Some horseradish. Then I've got my peas, and I got started staking them, but I've got a little bit more staking to do, but they're coming along nice. The rains really helped because we had a dry, hot summer, and things weren't growing all that much. And then we got some good rains. It cooled down, and then we got some good rains. And now we're going to get some heat after this. Everything should just jump out, and tremendous amount of growth. I've had some good feeds from the rhubarb. We'll walk over here. Oh, and I see one of the onions here. They're starting to go to flower, so I always nip off the flower heads because I don't want them to flower. I want the bulbs in there. So here's the bags of grass from my neighbors. They cut their lawn and they bag it up for me, and I collect it, and then I'll take this grass and I put it in, layer it on my garden beds in the winter. And as you see, this was put on here last fall, and it kept the weeds down. And then when I was ready to plant, I just pulled it back, put my seeds in, and it kept the moisture too. As I said, we had a really hot, dry spring. So these are my beans. I've got mixed beans in here, some yellow beans, purple beans. I've got my brassicas over in here. So I've got cabbage, cauliflower, and then my broccoli is over here. At the front, there was a little bit more soil left there, so I got some seedlings that were on sale at the closeout from the greenhouse, closing of the season. So I popped them in, see what I get. My squash plants, we did, oh, there's a little snake. See it? Just down, going in the tomato plants there. A garter snake, they're totally harmless. And I had put some squash plants in, and then we got a frost that set them right back. All the leaves had died off. I see some of them came back, but I did replant. I had some extra seedlings, so I did replant those. So those, my squash, and I always let these mullein plants grow. It's that big fluffy one. These are great for lungs. If you've got congestion in your lungs, you can actually inhale some of the smoke from that. And also it's like nature's band-aid. You can just wrap that around any wound. I also like to and here my raspberry patch there that's starting to form raspberries now, and I see lots of bees in there. And these little tomatoes, these were the subarctic max tomatoes, and as you see, like this guy, they were put out early. With the subarctic max tomatoes, if the temperature drops too low, they'll drop their blossoms, but subarctic max and also the subarctic variety, they won't do that. So as you see, their leaves got touched with the frost there, but there was enough plant left that they could keep going, and they're setting some tomatoes already. And then I put some more potatoes in here. Those are my red russets. And these are my hascap bushes, a couple of different varieties. And I see that, and the quackgrass. I always have a battle with the quackgrass in my garden. But I see they're starting to ripen in there. This one is a good producer here and very tasty. They're one of the early fruiting bushes. And then I've got some zucchini plants in here, and my strawberry plants, they're still just flowering. They're a little bit later. Oh, and there's the bees buzzing around. Lots of bees in there in the raspberries. And I like to leave this tall plant in here is the fireweed. I let them grow wild. It attracts pollinators. And also, this is my asparagus bed. Trying to get them established. I've been having a hard time getting them to get established, but I did get to eat a few. But here too, I also let the fireweed plant grow up, because when it first starts to come out, it's just like a green little shoot. It looks almost like the top of an asparagus plant, and you can eat it just like the asparagus plant. So I let them grow in the bed here. There's the Jerusalem artichoke. That will get a yellow kind of sunflower bloom on it, and then it's got edible tubers, and it's perennial. So I was very happy to find some of those plants and get them established. Here's another garden bed that, again, I just reclaimed this soil. The quackgrass had been coming in, and I had some onions that were sprouting, so I put them in, and some potatoes. I also put in some kale, planted some kale in there. I'm not sure if they're going to make it. But yeah, and I had lilacs all along here, but they were shading out my plants, so I got them cut back. My neighbor did that for me too. I need all the light I can get. More sunlight means more growth. And my garden's up by the house with all those big trees around it. I love my trees, but it does block the sun. And I'm going to do a little bit of weeding here out of my beans. Pick this pigweed to have some fresh steamed greens for this evening.